Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Materials live stream. So my name's Andrew, and I'm in second year iBioMed and Materials.
I'm Alex. I'm also in second year with Andrew.
I'm Sophie. I'm also in second year with those two.
I'm Ariana. I'm in third year.
Awesome. So now that we've started the live stream, I just wanted to remind everybody who's watching to please turn off your microphones and your cameras, just so that we maintain the quality of the stream. And if you have any questions, you can ask them right here. Yeah, you'll see that there's a conversation button. You can just type in anything at any time, and we'd be more than happy to answer your questions. We also have questions that you submitted from before, so we'll be going through those. But to start off, I think what we'll do is kind of just explain why we chose our stream. So does anybody want to start?
I can start since I'm the oldest and made the decision. I originally chose a different stream. I was enrolled in Eng Phys, but I had the opportunity to work with Dr. Granfield over the summer after my first year. And it really opened my eyes to what can be done after graduation with a materials degree. And I could see myself doing those types of jobs and that type of research. So it really guided me to switch actually from Eng Phys to materials. And I'm really happy with my decision. It's been great. If someone else wants to go next.
I'll go. So I think a large part of what helped me make my decision in first year was just going back to the projects that we had worked on, especially with 1P10, and figuring out like which parts of those projects I actually really liked, and that happened to be the materials portion for me. I also went to a bunch of the materials events and met all the people there, and it was honestly the profs that I met that convinced me to stay in materials. I also worked with a prof over the summer, Dr. McDermott, who is not an iBioMed prof, but a materials prof, and quasi worked with Kish, close proximity. So yeah, that experience solidified my decision over the summer as well.
Yeah, similar to Alex, it kind of started with the design projects as well in 1P10. So with DP3 with the hip implant, that was like my favorite part. I remember for our implant, like each component of the implant we chose was a different material because we just loved like researching how the materials interacted in the body, like how you could choose the properties to kind of make happen what you wanted to happen. I also had a meeting with Dr. Granfield probably like a couple weeks before our decision was due, and I was really stuck between chemical and materials, just because I feel like there's kind of an understanding that there's a bit of overlap with those. And I remember talking to her about the new courses that Materials was introducing, and as well as like how biomaterials was really kind of starting to get a lot of attention. So yeah, that's how I make that decision.
All right. So why I picked materials? It's kind of similar to everybody. It's kind of like a combination of everything that you guys just said. I started off coming into this program really wanting the HESI stream. Because I was really interested in going into medicine after my undergrad. And I still want to go into medicine, but what I found that's so cool about iBioMed is that no matter what discipline you go into, you're going to be prepared for a lot of different post-grad programs and careers in general. So I knew that no matter which stream I was picking, that I was making a good choice. So I really wanted HESI at the start, and then I started looking a lot at Eng Phys and materials. And it's for the same reasons as everyone else. It was that design project 2 that really drew me in, and I found that there was a lot of awesome things that you could do with materials. And I was like, whoa, where has this area of science been? My entire like understanding of science was never focused on materials, and so it was really interesting to see how my ambitions and my interests changed over first year. And so I guess. Yeah, it ended with the same kind of thing where Dr. Catherine Granfield, she converted me through a summer research program, and it was really awesome. The research was incredible. I had an amazing time working with people in the lab, so I also found a love for research as well, and just my project was really great. So I found that, this is definitely something that I'd be interested in pursuing throughout the rest of my undergrad degree. And so that's why I'm here. Speaking of our profs, it's funny that we speak about them because they're actually here with us tonight. It's kind of just a little bit testament to the materials community. We are a really small, tight-knit community. And so, yeah, I'd like to invite them to just say hi, say that you're here.
Okay, well, I'll start. Hi,
first.
You all know me from 1P10, so I'm here to help answer any questions you might have. You all have my email, so you can reach out to me anytime too, and we can chat. I might leave the chat a bit early so that you can ask questions without profs being around, so you don't have to worry about what you're listening to. You can be really open and honest. And one thing I want to draw your attention to is a bunch of files that we uploaded. So I made a video that you guys can check out later under the files tab in this chat. It's probably not as useful as this discussion, but please check it out and reach out if you have any questions. And I hope to see you in materials next year. Bye.
Dr. Kish?
Right. Okay, I'm next, evidently, right? How's that? Can you see me?
Yep.
All right, great. So welcome to all you first years. You don't know who I am, but you'll get a steady dose of me next year. You'll see me in 2H and 2D. 2H is a continuation kind of the 1P course where it's project-based, open-ended type of problems learning, and that's a full year. And then the 2D course is a second year chemical thermodynamics course where we start laying the foundations of how energy changes are very important into structure transformations, which are very important to controlling properties. So you'll see a lot of me next year. I'm very excited. I really enjoyed interacting with the size of the class we had this year, which was a healthy mix of iBioMed, 50% and 50% regular or stream material students. So really enjoyed the interactions and getting perspectives from both sides of the fence. So I think these guys are speaking the honest truth about the sense of community that you will feel coming into second year. And you can't stress enough the importance of materials in design. It doesn't matter if it's classical or biomedical. The design is nothing without a functional material, and the power is in controlling structure to control properties to make these designs and devices work is a pretty amazing moment. So thanks for joining tonight, and I hope to see you all in September.
Thanks, Dr. Kish. And Dr. Zarab, if you just wanted to say hi.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm Hatem Zurab. I'm the chair of the department, and I teach the first thermodynamics course that you take in second year. But I guess my more important job is to make sure that we address any concerns you have and to make sure that you go home happy every day and feeling that you have a rewarding experience in materials. So feel free to reach out. We're always happy to hear from you, and we're happy to make adjustments to make sure the program is better every time. And I would just like to comment briefly on some of the things that were mentioned in the introduction. You may have noticed how for many people, they were thinking about materials and another stream. And that's not surprising because basically materials is the intersection, if you like, of all the engineering disciplines. We don't make the material for the sake of making a material. We make a material for the sake of advancing another application. So it's normal that people think about materials in phys, materials in chemical, materials in mechanical. We even have people who are torn between materials and software, materials and electrical. That's all normal because materials is a multidisciplinary field. And more in our courses, we're trying to capture that We're trying to have you take courses with other engineering disciplines. We're trying to set up our project-based courses like the one that Dr. Kish talked about, so you get experience with real design. So that's my brief introduction, and we're happy to hear from you and answer any questions you have this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Zurab. That's awesome. So I guess we're going to continue on just explaining kind of like our experience in materials engineering, but I encourage anybody who has questions for our profs while they're still here, you can ask questions in the chat, and then we can invite our profs back to speak about them because they won't be here for the entire time for the Q&A after. We'll likely just be the students. So if you do have any questions you want to ask, please ask them closer to the first half of our presentation, just so that you have those questions answered now. But yeah, so I guess for all the student reps, if we want to kind of just go around and kind of speak about our experience in materials so far. And if Ariana, you want to start just to keep the pattern.
For sure. I have really enjoyed materials. One of the things that I like the most is the class sizes. So in my area of materials, we only have about 20 students. So our classes are extremely small, which is really nice because it allows us to really get to know our peers as well as our profs. And it really helps kind of solidify your understanding because you're not afraid to ask questions. You're not afraid of your profs. They're all super, super kind and are always willing to help out. So that's really wonderful. On top of that, materials is lucky enough to have an exchange program to Grenoble, France. So this semester I was actually able to partake in that, and I lived in France for a few months, which was an absolutely amazing experience. If you have more questions on that, maybe send them in the chat and I can answer further. And if Alex wants to go next.
Yeah, so just coming out of my second year, so definitely able to answer a lot of questions about like the courses that you'll be taking very soon because it's still very fresh. I'm still taking them right now, even though COVID. So yeah, we've had a couple design courses this year, lots of thermo, some different areas from like your math and your physics courses as well, showing how like integrated it is. We share some with ChemEng as well. One thing that I particularly learned this year is that I went into materials with the assumption that like I was going to be like diehard iBioMed, but I know everyone here is iBioMed and probably thinks the same thing. But honestly, throughout this year and throughout my summer research, I have gained like much more of an appreciation for the entire field of materials and understanding that like although it might not seem bio related, a lot of like the things that we're learning in class, like they're going to be new materials that are not now applied to biomedical fields, but with our understanding and background, we can now like pivot that to shift it. So although some of your courses may not be biomed, no stream will be, it's really easy to like apply it in different ways. I also have gained an appreciation for things that like aren't necessarily the field of biomed. So I'm now interested in like aerospace materials and the steel industry. So yeah, if you have questions about that too, there's different ways to get involved, like clubs and teams with that especially. My other interest was mechanical, and like I still think that I'm getting enough of that as well. Like I can market myself for mechanical jobs. I can market myself for ChemEng jobs. Like it's super cool, super diverse, and definitely have learned a lot this year. Sophie?
Yeah, I think similar to Alex, I like obviously the courses we've gone through are the same. So if you have any questions about those, feel free to reach out or ask us now. But one of the things that I really enjoyed as well for second year compared to some of the other kids that I was talking about in different streams is that our courses actually that aren't just iBiomed core courses are also bringing in biomed projects. So Kish had introduced to HO4. So this year we got to work on not only a knee implant design, but also a biodegradable stent design. So it was cool to see like that shift from 1P10 in a course where it really was, 1P10 is a lot of health sciences and that kind of thing, but it was really cool in 2H to see that true combination and integration of engineering and biomed engineering. So that was definitely one of the highlights of my year, but yeah, course-wise and that it's pretty similar to what Alex is talking about. So
Yeah, to add on to what everybody's said so far, one thing I really like about the materials stream is the diversity of the course structure as well. So we have a lot of hands-on lab courses, but we also have lecture-based courses and inquiry-based courses. That's balanced out with iBioMed, like the biochem and the anatomy that we're taking as well. So it can be a little bit heavy first semester, but I found that it was definitely worth it because I have like such a good understanding, both a practical understanding because I have all of its lab experience now, but also like a theoretical understanding. So like materials really offered a good dose of both of those things. In addition, you'd think that materials is kind of really far from software, but there is a lot of applications to software, and the profs really do a good job of making sure that we're practicing and flexing those kinds of sides of our brain that are like geared towards like CAD and code, because there used to be, for example, in thermodynamics, we had the chance to do bonus assignments that were coding based. In our 2H04 class, we were constructing knee implants, and we had to CAD those knee implants from scratch. So those are just two examples of, like you get a little bit of everything, and you can definitely kind of gear it the way that you want to go. But it's good to like get that overall arching experience. So that was something I really enjoyed about materials as well. So yeah, I think something that we can also talk about is just kind of like the community of materials. I guess I can start. I found that materials, like Ariana mentioned, is really, really small, but we also have a lot of really interesting perks that kind of come with materials engineering. So for example, we have 2 exclusive lounges that only materials students have access to. You get your hatch cards through the hub, which is in JHE. And so there's one on each, on the 2nd and the 3rd floor of JHE. They're called the orange room and the green room. And it's a spot that's completely dedicated just to material students, where you can go to, just collaborate, hang out, have lunch, do work. So that was something that I really liked about the community as well. And I don't know if anybody has anything to add on that. Feel free to.
I think you summed it up pretty well. Thanks, Andrew.
Oh, no problem. So I guess something that we can also talk about is maybe just like the schedule and the logistics of the way that, materials combine, like, meshes with iBioMed. So does anybody want to speak to that?
I think my second year was significantly different in terms of some courses like 2H. So maybe you guys can speak more to second year. But for third year, it actually meshes quite well. You have basically 2 courses from iBioMed per semester, and then the rest are materials courses. And I didn't have any overlap or anything, and I wasn't overwhelmed at all with having both streams, and they actually complemented each other. I started noticing similarities. For example, more so I guess in second year, as people have mentioned before, 2H, you got to design a knee implant, so you could think of your anatomy knowledge, which is very much an iBiomed course, and take that into consideration in 2H and some other materials courses, which was really, really neat to see the overlap. And in terms of logistics, they will make sure that everything lines up and you're able to take all of your courses. So don't stress about that. Alex, if you want to add.
So I think that even for the second years, our schedule might be changing from what you guys are going to see. So I'd encourage you to go look at that file that Dr. Granfield mentioned from the files link, because I think that has the updated course schedule. That being said, if you guys don't want to follow it, I don't know, or you have some concerns with it, that's one really great thing about materials, is that we have Dr. Zarab as our department chair who can change anything, maybe. So yeah, but seriously, if you guys do have concerns or want to change your schedule around, that's something that you can totally bring up with Dr. Zarab. We're going to be having a forum probably this summer to talk about schedules and getting feedback. So our schedule this year, we did have a required like 7 courses in our first semester, but I believe that's being changed for good reason, because it did feel heavy. But I did take math over the summer, which did improve my course load like tremendously. I took them for both semesters too. So instead of having 7 and 6, I had 6 and 5. This semester has felt very manageable. We've had biochem in first semester as the iBio course, and then we've had anatomy running the whole year. So we had 2 iBio courses in first semester and 2 iBio courses in the second semester. So right now we're taking 2 PO3, which is a genetic engineering, also a project-based course. So we're learning about synthetic biology in that one. I think that, yeah, it's been pretty well balanced. It's been almost equal split of materials and iBiomed. So you don't feel like you're really separated from either cohort too, which is really nice. Like you can interact with your old iBiomed pals and their different streams on a regular basis. Sorry, I'm in my basement. But you can also like have the opportunity to meet a whole bunch of really new cool people from materials, and like that honestly came very naturally because it's a small cohort and everyone's really nice and the profs are super engaging and will try and like talk with their classes. Very much like a give and take during lectures. You're not just sitting there listening, they're getting feedback from you all the time. And that's something that I really liked because otherwise I think I'd get a little bored, but they keep it really engaging. Not that the content's boring, that's not what I said. But just 8:30 a.m. It's a lot. Okay, Sophie?
I think just the only thing that hasn't been touched on as well is the materials schedule. If any of you have seen it, or even just hearing of 7 courses in one semester, sounds really demanding, and it was. But if you look at our schedule, there's also a lot of lab time that's scheduled in there. So I think Andrea touched on that a bit earlier, but you won't have labs every week. So it's kind of like first year where they're staggered and you don't even have them every other week. Sometimes it's every few weeks to kind of complement the design projects that you're working on. So even though the schedule itself can look really demanding, those lab hours aren't happening every week, and it allows you a lot of that time in your schedule to meet with your groups, kind of like 1P10, just outside of the classroom, coordinating project work and stuff like that. So don't be intimidated. The changes are being made that need to be made to make it as easy on you as it can. And like everybody's mentioned, the department is super approachable when it comes to making changes to make your guys' lives easy. So it'll be okay.
Yeah, and to add on that, like I definitely agree. I found it a little bit difficult at first to get used to the amount of hours of class that we have. It definitely was a really heavy first semester. But what I found was that if you can take math in the summer, it was a great way to kind of curb some of the time that you'd be spending in class, and it made things manageable. Like I was able to be involved in a lot of things, and that's because I was like the material schedule is flexible enough that you can do that. So I felt comfortable enough, balancing my workload with other things that are kind of more community based. So there's definitely still a lot of room to move around and explore the things that you're interested in outside of school as well. And it's only going to get better as they start to kind of customize their schedule. We were the first really big group of iBiomed students. Ariana is actually the only third-year iBio in materials. So the changes are coming. They're just coming, in waves. And it's only going to get better with time. So with that, what I'd like, maybe we can touch on as well, is there a place that is there something that you really like about materials, or something that you think materials could improve on? That, other than the schedule, perhaps?
Other than the schedule, what I really like, I think it's been mentioned a bunch, but the community is unparalleled in in other streams. It's such a tight-knit community that goes for students, professors, graduate students as well, that serve as your TAs. They're always super willing to help out, which is absolutely amazing. In terms of improvements, honestly, I would say the schedule is the only thing in about first semester of second year, but I know that's being changed, so don't stress over that at all. Alex, if you want to add on.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, I think that to piggyback off Ariana, the schedule was the only thing that was like, it just felt heavy in first semester. However, I think that taking the maths did take a lot of pressure off of me. So my perspective is probably not as, like, I didn't think it was terrible. I just felt like I was doing work. I don't know. But the difference between 5 and 6 courses for me personally didn't feel that bad, just because of what Sophie mentioned. It was like the lab times, and also materials profs are very nice, and they actually talk to each other about when they're scheduling things. So multiple times during our semesters, we have said to our profs, hey, we're dying this week. Can we please either like put that thing on another week, or like push it back or push it forward? And they have done it for us every single time. And sometimes we don't even have to ask them to do that. They just reach out and say like, hey, are you guys feeling okay? And we're like, no. And they say, okay. So that's really awesome. Yeah, that's honestly one thing that I have really appreciated in terms of like brownie points for materials. It's just that they are constantly asking for our feedback, treating us like people. Being a student is stressful. So like just like being understanding about like just our workload and how much time we have in our day. And they really do adjust that for us. So
yeah, I think if I had to add anything at all, it would just be, I think we're making huge strides in doing this as well, but I think outreach for the program is a big thing, because obviously we are such a small community, and that has its really incredible perks, but I think it's also that a lot of people just don't know enough about materials. And one of the conversations that I had, that was one of my concerns first year. So I'm like, why is the program so small? If it's so great, why aren't more people going into it? And I think it really just is that materials isn't one of those generic streams that you think of. Like you think of mechanical, and of course it's a huge stream, and you think of chemical, and it's a huge stream. But people don't really give materials an honest chance, I think, sometimes. So I think you just that outreach and answering all the questions that you guys have when we can is going to help in doing that. But yeah.
Yeah, to add on to what Sophie said, I think something that's really awesome about materials right now, and something that they are working to improve, is just, you know, the biomedical component. There's a lot of work being done to develop new courses that are more biomedical oriented, and they're working a lot of the course content that they've already established, and they're moving it towards a more biomedical direction. So everybody who, you know, students that are not interested in biomedical engineering, but also iBioMed students are able to appreciate the courses to the same degree. So I think that was something that was really awesome, and it's an initiative that's continuing that's going to continue throughout our entire undergrad. And so again, that's one of those things that's going to improve with time. But I really appreciate the work that they're doing to move us in that direction. Which brings me into my next point. Is there maybe a favorite course that you guys want to share? Or, you know, yeah, like a course that you personally really enjoyed?
I really liked the tutorial aspect of 2HO4. So what that consisted of essentially was designing a knee implant that had to fit certain specifications. So it had to be able to withhold a certain amount of compressive stress without having too many areas of built up stress in the joints of your design. And it also had to be a certain shape, and you had to try and minimize the mass. So you wanted it to be super lightweight, but had to withstand a certain force. And the way we designed it was actually using CAD. So we'd make a bunch of different shapes, and then in the Inventor software, we'd apply a force to the top part of your design, and it would spit out all these numbers at you, which at first were super confusing. But if you read through them, it would basically show you where the areas of high stress were in your material, the areas that would fracture first, and all sorts of really cool information like that. And based on those that data that you'd get, you could alter your design and try it again. And it was basically an iterative process that allowed you to kind of have the best design. So that was super cool and something I had never done before and that I didn't even know could be done in Inventor. So it was learning new skills. And right there, that's an application to biomedical materials, which was super, super cool. Alex, if you want to go ahead.
Yes. So we also did the same project that Ariana is talking about this semester, and that was probably one of my favorite parts about the 2HO4 course, because it really was about design and coming up with something new. Plus, I like CAD. That was one of the reasons that I was considering mechanical. So didn't lose that, which was nice. And then we also, I did like the lab components of 2HO4 as well, because I think that there's a lot that can be learned from that that's very applicable to materials. Like all the labs that we did this year are things that you are probably going to do like anywhere that you get a job in materials engineering. They're just some like foundational like lab skills that you should learn. And then also I have enjoyed learning about thermo a lot. Maybe that's unpopular, I don't know. I thought it was really cool though, because it's a little bit of a different take on engineering than I think a lot of other courses have, because it really does talk about like the science of a material and getting like a foundation, like an understanding of like the actual concepts. And a lot more of the other courses that we have done is more like, how do you apply it to industry? But I actually really enjoyed like knowing why, like why should I care about this? And definitely giving me like strong foundational skills that I will take for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think similar to Alex, kind of all of the courses where we had some lab or design project component were really exciting for me. And honestly, all of the courses in general, I felt like I could take so much more away from than I did with my first year courses, because first year it's very like foundational knowledge and some of it is just kind of repeated from high school. But second year in all of my courses, I was like, now I can see how this is going to be applied. And it's not just a lot of just, you can see how it's applied. It's not just all theoretical. It's you see the applications and you get to apply it in your labs and you get to see it in your design projects. So definitely thermo and 2HO4 were highlights. But also I really enjoyed anatomy this year. Anatomy is a very demanding course and it requires a lot of your time, but it is very interesting when you take a step back to see the resources that we have as students and being able to go in the anatomy lab all the time, look at specimens, and just the resources that the faculty provides to us, I think are really interesting, and it's a unique experience compared to a lot of other schools. So that was a highlight, though definitely hard to admit because it is a lot. But it was still one of my favorite courses. So
yeah, I kind of agree with Sophie. Like there's a soft spot for anatomy, even though it was so hard because of the amount of content. It was so rewarding because it was everything that I could imagine in one bio course, all in one. And it was an incredible opportunity as well to be able to learn from the resources in the lab. But for a more like materials-based course, I actually really enjoyed 2XO3, which is a crystalline structures and materials course. It's definitely a little bit more of an unconventional course. Not many students would say that they really like enjoyed it because it's interesting to learn about, but it's hard to envision in your mind because it's all about like, you know, like at the atomic level, what like atoms are behaving like and oriented. But it was really interesting because that orientation of these atoms is what determines a lot of the properties that many like multifunctional and advanced materials use. It's kind of the entire premise of, memory in our computers, and, the way that human tissue is able to grow into implants. All of those different things come back to the structure of the atoms and their behavior with each other and stuff like that. And I found that really, really interesting because there are so many ways that you can apply that. And as you all know from Dr. Zitimersky, there are so many applications, and that's like the drive home message of crystalline structures and materials for sure. And then I also really liked fluid mechanics. It was a really interesting course because not only do you learn about fluid mechanics just as another physics course, but our prof, Dr. Latulip, taught it in a really engaging way. And he in the tutorials, we actually got to use a lot of analytical software or like analytical approaches to using Excel. So we learned a lot of research tools, such as linear regression, and how to look at that and determine the significance of a specific data set you received. And it's already applying to so many other courses that I'm taking. I know like stats and epidemiology and critical appraisal of medical literature. Those are things that I already know a lot about because of the things that we learned in fluid mechanics. And then it also relates a lot to anatomy, especially through cardio, when you learn about how like pressure in the blood is related to, the way that like a fluid system works. So it's all very applicable. And I found that really interesting. Okay, and I guess maybe one thing before we move on to questions, if anybody wants to share like an experience they've had over co-op, or just applications that they've personally experienced in biomedical materials engineering or just materials in general.
Sorry, do you mean course-wise or?
More like a co-op or like outside of school experiences.
Yeah, no problem. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I was able to work with Dr. Granfield for 2 summers so far, which has been absolutely amazing. And my graduate student that I worked under, his name was Dan, and he actually designed a material called cellulose nanocrystal aerogels. And we did a study with them to see how bones could actually integrate with the material and grow in, which was super cool. And I was able to help out with that. With super hands-on, I learned skills like using a scanning electron microscope as well as a micro CT and some of the softwares that you need after using those microscopes to kind of process the data, which was super cool and super applicable to materials. I was able to see some of the theory that I learned in my courses actually be applied to that project, I guess. Which was amazing. And then on top of that, as I kind of briefly mentioned before, the materials stream has a partnership with a university in France, in Grenoble, France. So I was able to partake in that experience, which is super cool and kind of prioritized to materials students. So if you are thinking about exchange, it's definitely something that is possible with materials engineering. So yeah, I hope that helps with your decision a little bit.
Yeah, and so I think that all of us actually have had an experience working in a lab. So that's the only co-op that I've done so far, is working at the Center of Automotive Materials and Corrosion out at MARC under Dr. McDermott. One thing that people haven't mentioned already, though, is just kind of getting involved outside of school on things like technical teams or like clubs and stuff like that. Just because if you are feeling like you're being pulled in a couple different directions in terms of like what stream you want to choose, it's not like impossible to get those experiences and learn from other places that aren't course-based. So for me, like I went into materials, but then I joined a technical team called Nudos. So Nudos is building a small satellite that's going to be launched in 2022. Sorry, not this year. But basically I'm getting like the skills of like CAD and software more so from that experience than maybe I am getting through my teams, but that through my courses. But that actually is a super valuable experience that is great to talk about, especially in terms of like, if you do want to apply for a co-op in that field, I would really strongly suggest trying to look at things that, like, if you want to go in a certain direction, like pivot, like some of the outside projects that you do outside of school towards that direction as well. But yeah, doing a bunch of cool CAD stuff with that. So yeah, Sophie?
Yeah, so unlike these guys, I haven't worked in a materials focused lab. I was actually working in a lab this past summer under a mechanical prof, but his lab was very bio focused. So I was working with different biomaterials. So it was interesting again. And I tell all of the first years that I see that if you get the opportunity at all, ever do summer research, try it out and see if it's for you. Because I think even if it's just for a summer, you really get an idea of if maybe grad school and research is something that you want to pursue down the line, or if you are more driven in industry co-op. So I guess until I really get an opportunity in an industry co-op, I'll be able to compare which I enjoy more. But I think that that's important in kind of developing where you want to go with your degree.
Yeah, so I also, like Ariana, I worked in Dr. Grantfield's lab last summer, and hopefully this summer as well, permitting that, the whole coronavirus kind of settles down. But my project was really interesting. I actually did a lot of chemistry, more chemistry than I thought I would do in materials engineering. That's what I kind of learned, is that materials engineering probably gives you a little bit more exposure to chemistry than Chem Eng does. Chem Eng is a little bit more process-based, which you'll learn about in the next slide stream. Yeah, I was working on a project where we were basically coating metallic porous implants that would then go or like be the actual body of an implant, like a hip implant, like we worked on in 1P10 with a special or sorry, like a new completely novel biocompatible material. And we would explore these materials using all kinds of different like techniques, such as electron microscopy. And then also in cell testing, we would look at how, whether or not the cells liked or disliked a specific material, and perhaps, consider or hypothesize why. And so it was a really, really awesome experience. And I really found a love for research in that co-op. Anyway, so I guess enough about us. And maybe we can answer some of the questions that you guys submitted to us earlier. So I guess the first question that we have here is, what kind of facilities and resources are available on campus for students in this stream? So does anybody want to answer that? I think we touched on it a little bit, but.
Yeah, I can answer. So in terms of facilities for community, Andrew mentioned that there are two lounges, I guess, for material students. So that's they're both in JHE, and you're welcome to use those to hang out, to do work, eat lunch. There's a microwave, which is awesome if you need to bring food. And then in terms of lab equipment, we have quite a few labs that are materials labs throughout the university. Some of them designated to professors their research groups, and then other ones that are more so for undergraduate students working on projects, which is really nice. You will see them in thermo, for example. You have a lot of lab-based stuff, as well as 2HO4. You'll get to see the labs. They're mostly scattered through JHE, but there's tons of different equipment that you can use. And then off campus, there's a facility called MARC, which some materials, I guess, research groups use. So they have similar pieces of equipment. And then they also have machines for things like corrosion. So they mimic weather conditions and things like that in terms of materials and how materials will react. Those you won't necessarily see in your first few years of undergrad, but if you work in a research group, or you pursue that kind of as a capstone project or something, you'd have access to that later. Yeah, I hope that was a brief overview.
Cool, thanks. Does anybody have anything to add? Are we good? Okay, cool. So another question is, what sort of things would you design or jobs would you have as a material and biomedical engineer?
Okay, I can talk about that one a little bit. I don't think that like materials is actually all that like limited in what you can do, kind of for reasons of what we've been talking about. So you can go into like a traditional materials position, which is working in industry and in research. There's a lot of research that goes on, both at McMaster, but as like a research assistant in industry. In terms of industry in Hamilton, obviously there's a lot of steel research, so that's going to be like DeFasco. And big companies like that who hire a lot of like summer co-op students. I think a lot of summer co-op students work at the big steel mills, and they're pretty like solid jobs, and they get a lot of responsibility there. In terms of a biomedical application, because I know that that's not exactly focused towards that, I think it would be a lot more on the research-based side of it, just because you do have a little bit more of the foundation in both fields. So you can offer some perspective as a materials engineer with like a biomedical understanding. So a lot of companies like that are like startup companies. Also, I know people going into like pharmaceutical kind of stuff. So one of our friends, Leah, is doing that this summer. Is she working at Johnson? Can't remember.
AstraZeneca.
Zeneca, yes. So they're kind of a pharmaceutical-based company. There's like numerous opportunities in the GTA. There's also aerospace companies. That's a big field. So working on like Lightning aircrafts, Lightning vehicles. A lot of military stuff is also, they hire a lot of materials engineer. Like, as you can see, it's kind of whatever you want to do, you can put yourself in that position. And I think that you can also gain skills in a bunch of different fields and market yourself to take that chemical engineering job and take that mechanical engineering job if that's what you want to do. Yeah.
Cool. I can add on something that I actually, maybe I missed it, or maybe you guys said it already, but something that I'm particularly interested in is kind of where like materials and biomedical engineering really like mesh at like the most perfect level, I would say, is like with like artificial organ development. So making tissues or artificial tissues that kind of resemble the natural assembly of tissues in the body, and the natural function of tissues in the body. So I think something that's really interesting that's happening at McMaster, Dr. Kyla Sask, she's I believe she's doing some crucial research on artificial placentas and the microfluidics behind that. So that was a really, really inspiring project that I got the chance to learn about during the summer a little bit from one of my colleagues, Leah. And so that was really cool. And there are so many more opportunities just like that to kind of apply materials to the human body, which is what I'm particularly interested in. And also drug delivery, right? So creating, like you said, Alex, the pharmaceuticals, but even building pharmaceuticals into the tissues themselves, right? So drug releasing stents and drug releasing implants are huge things in materials engineering or in biomedical engineering as well, right? And that's something that I found really captivating to myself. Okay, so another question was, what are good indicators that materials and biomedical engineering is for you in terms of courses you like or things that you want to do in the future?
I guess I can answer this one since I haven't contributed. I guess the biggest thing is there's not really, I remember thinking this in first year as well, that like, oh, I didn't like this course, that means I definitely can't join this stream. Like, I think we've talked about it a lot in that in materials, but also in other streams, you're still working in very multidisciplinary environments. So you're gonna get a touch of every stream, no matter which you choose, I think, in a lot of ways, especially with materials, because it's really at the core of everything, in my opinion. Like, everything that is designed, everything that is engineered needs to be made of something, and that something needs to be a material. So I think I've heard from a lot of people, you know, oh, if I don't like chemistry, I'm going to be horrible in materials. But I know a lot of people who didn't really thrive that much in materials. First year wasn't their favorite course. And that doesn't mean that materials isn't for you. A lot of people that I've talked to in materials didn't love physics as much, and that deterred them away from mechanical or eng phys or different streams like that. I was one of those people who didn't enjoy physics as much, but there's people like Alex who obviously don't mind physics. She was considering mechanical. So I think it really just comes down to not what courses you enjoyed, but I think the big piece of advice that I can give is look at the course lists for the second year streams and see how many courses catch your eye, how many things intrigue you, and kind of let that guide which stream you might be more interested in. Because I know looking at the software course list, I knew that wasn't going to be for me. But looking at materials, there were a lot of things that caught my eye. I really loved that there were going to be design projects. I loved how much bio was going to be integrated throughout the rest of my degree. So I think don't look at what you've done, but look at what is ahead, I guess. That was deeper than I expected it to be. But anyway, yeah.
That's awesome.
If I could add on one short thing. Don't be too overwhelmed with, you know, thinking, oh, I need to make a decision now. I need to make a decision now. Yes, you have to submit your choices, but so many of us have been able to switch after, which is wonderful. If you choose a stream and you start your courses and you're like, this really isn't for me, you can always go talk to your academic advisors, the chair of the departments, even just professors, get some input on other streams that you're thinking of, and you do have the opportunity to switch. So don't think that whatever you submit is gonna be what you have to do for the rest of your life. That's not true. You can definitely switch, or even say you finish your undergrad in a certain stream, you could go on to do a master's or graduate studies in a different stream. So your options are always open, and all the streams have different types of courses that are awesome and good for your learning. So yeah, don't stress.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, the other thing is we have quite a few technical electives. We don't have, you know, a huge amount of technical elective space, but I think we have 8 or 9 courses that we can take. And that gives you kind of a lot of flexibility to take courses that you're interested in from other streams. And if it's something that is not really, that doesn't fall as like, that currently isn't seen as an acceptable technical elective, there's always like, you know, some compromise that can be made with the different department chairs. Dr. Zarab has been really good with that so far. Every time I've gone to speak to him, he's always said, you know, if you ever want to take a course, we can definitely discuss it if it's not already part of the list. So there's a lot of flexibility in materials, and you'll start to see connections between a lot of different streams, like everybody said. Like I didn't even think about how elec could be kind of related to materials, and now there's an electronic properties and materials courses that you take in third year, right? So there are plenty of ways that you can make connections with other streams, and that will make you really marketable to all kinds of different disciplines. If you do a post-grad, or even if you're applying directly to the workforce, you can really leverage those different experiences that you've had. So yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on it. And we are almost out of time. So maybe if everybody wants to kind of leave with like a key takeaway for when you know, if someone's considering materials engineering.
Definitely keep it in mind. Materials is wonderful, has a really great community, which is my favorite part about it. To get more information, always feel free to reach out to any of us, and profs are always available as well. But yeah, in the end, don't stress too much over your stream choice, and just do whatever feels right for you.
Yep, and adding on to Ariana's point about like it's never too late to switch. You will know if it feels wrong pretty quickly. And you can talk to someone about that, and it's not hard to even like start your courses, get a semester into your courses, and then change. Like, it's all doable. So really don't stress too much about it. And yeah, definitely along with Sophie, I would take a look at all of the streams courses. That's a really good way to actually like figure out what you will be taking, because that is super important.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe we can get the link for like the course schedule if no one has the link for that. If you guys haven't looked,
It should be in the files.
Okay, perfect. But even just for all the streams, like this, like Alex is saying, and like look through those, see what piques your interest the most. I think also like Dr. Zarab had added here on the side about what some other professors are working on. A great way to get an idea of the professors that will be teaching you and also who you may want to do research with is just to go through the different faculty members. It normally has a blurb about the research that they're currently doing or research that they've done. And it's a good idea, or it's a good way to get an idea of some projects related to the fields that you're thinking of. And if maybe there's a certain stream of projects that are piquing your interest more, maybe that's a stream that you're going to be better suited for. But yeah, don't think what is necessarily going to, land you the best job one day or like make you the most successful. Like, you're in Mac Eng, you're probably going to be successful no matter what stream you choose. So just really go based with what your interests are, because if you're not interested in it, you're not going to be motivated to stay with it for 5 years. So really make sure that you love it, and don't be afraid to make the wrong choice, because there really isn't a wrong choice.
I think your mic is
My
talking.
microphone was muted. Just to add on, just to kind of close off, if we haven't already convinced you, I would definitely suggest that you reach out to some of the profs that were here tonight. So Dr. Granfield, Dr. Kish, Dr. Zarab, because if we didn't convince you, they certainly will. And I just found, like, I think a lot of people don't really see materials as an option, but it surely has surprised me time and time again about how awesome it is. So definitely consider it, and don't be afraid to jump in with it, because you won't be disappointed, and our community will assure that. So yeah, okay, well, we've kind of reached the end of our time together. Just a reminder that there's a ChemEng live stream right after this in the ChemEng channel. So if you're interested in ChemEng as well, please feel free to come out to that. I'd just like to thank the other reps here tonight for taking some time to share your experience in materials engineering, and to the profs that came out as well. I'm sure the students will really appreciate it now, and also watching this back later on. And with that said, yeah, thank you everybody, and have a great night.